The horrific and escalating conflict in the Middle East continues to claim more human lives. So who do the legacy media turn to get an unbiased perspective on that? Those patriots who have undisclosed ties to the military-industrial complex who will profit from this war. Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our mutual voyage to truth and freedom that we undertake together now. Remember, we stream every day at these times. Download the Rumble app and join us there if you can. And if it's within your means, become an awakened wonder and support our additional content that I know you will love. After all, we need truth now more than ever, or at least as close as we can get to unbiased reporting. Like right now, for example, let me tell you plainly, I do not profit from Raytheon or Lockheed Martin's actions. So when I talk about this horrific escalating conflict, the loss of human lives across the spectrum, the tragedy for people, no matter what your religious or spiritual alliances are, you know that I'm not making any money selling missiles. And I think that gives me a degree of clarity that none of the people you're about to see that the legacy media turn to are able to offer you. Have a look at this montage. Each one of these apparent experts has a tie to either Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or someone else. They don't declare that. And when the legacy media are saying, what should we do? And do you think the solution to this problem should involve expensive artillery and weapons? They usually say, yeah, I think it should. And you don't have any personal investment in that, do you? Oh, they literally do. Have a look.
Jeremy, I thought this might be the most significant foreign trip by U.S. president.
I want to bring in Leon Panetta, formerly the U.S. Secretary of Defense under President Obama.
Ambassador Dennis Ross, former special envoy to the Middle East.
Former CIA Director John Brennan. You've worked in national security, you've worked in the field.
You'll notice that none of those people disclosed their ties to those military-industrial complex companies that take 50% of your tax dollar defense budget. Let's get into this in a little more depth. The world witnessed a modern high point of the American presidency when President Joe Biden visited and spoke in Israel on October 18th. At least that was the take offered by Jeremy Bash, national security analyst for the liberal cable news network MSNBC. It was absolutely the finest hour by any president I've seen in a long, long time, Bash said Wednesday on the show Deadline White House. Next, he suggested that Hamas may have directly targeted the Al-Ali Arab hospital in the Gaza Strip, where an explosion killed hundreds of Palestinians last week. I wouldn't put it past them, given what their record is and their use of human shields, he said. As of now, experts are still trying to determine responsibility for the bombing. You are aware that this is perhaps the most contentious conflict in the world, maybe in world history. And uniquely at this time, it's come into a kind of conversational global crisis where people are unable to communicate openly without feeling the pressure to take sides. Even making this content now, I know that some of you will want absolute support for Israel, others will want absolute support for Palestine. It's very difficult for us to offer you a take that's about the American military-industrial complex profiting from this conflict, potentially escalating this conflict, not because it's best for humanitarian reasons, patriotic reasons, reasons of alliance, the future of the Middle East, support for Israel, the best thing to do for the people of Gaza. No, what's possibly motivating a significant portion of the trajectory and agenda around how to handle this conflict are undisclosed ties to military-industrial complex organizations. And if that's not part of the story, why are each of these pundits, when they're on legacy media, not saying, I should tell you first of all, I work with Raytheon. I should tell you first of all, I work with Lockheed Martin. This conflict is complicated enough where everyone on social media feels a pressure to say, I stand with X or I am against Y. And actually, really, the truth is we are all human beings, and if there's one thing we can extract from this, shouldn't it be anybody profiting from this situation? A single missile being launched with the motivation being anything other than, well, this is what's best for world peace. This is what's best for the people of either this side or that side. It is so complicated, and across social media spaces, you will find people powerfully advocating for either side. You will find incredible pressure. Let me know if you feel it too, to find a fealty, a strong sense of alliance with this side or that side. What we feel obliged to do, because we are really interested in finding a way out of this devastating, terrible conflict that that is claiming human lives, children being lost, whoever you are, whatever your alliance is, we feel that one thing we could do is look at people that claim to be speaking rationally when in fact they are advocating for profiteering without even disclosing it. The legacy media should not be showcasing the voices of Raytheon and Lockheed Martin without telling you plainly that's what they're doing. I would say more important than their opinion on how this crisis should be handled is what their relationship is with Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, considering that these organizations spend millions lobbying and earn billions bombing. At no point did MSNBC mention that Bash, who served as chief of staff at the Central Intelligence Agency in the Department of Defense in the Obama administration, leads a consulting firm that has reportedly worked for defense contracting giant Raytheon, which supplies missiles for Israel's Iron Dome defense system. Remember, if you have a strong affiliation to Israel, if you are Israeli, if you are Jewish, I am not saying that you don't have the right to your emotional experience right now. Who the hell am I to comment on that? Where I do feel qualified to pontificate is, should Jeremy Bash, former CIA head, current member of consulting firm that reportedly works with Raytheon, be pretending to be, well, not even neutral, offering advocacy without declaring profiteering, which I think, if you take away your personal alliances, has informed almost every conflict in the last 100 years, and perhaps is the primary motivation for all wars. There is enough historic complexity in that region without the intercession of profiteering, without a legacy media not declaring their true motivation, true alliances, and where they're getting their information from. The episode is part of a broader recurring pattern in corporate TV news. In recent weeks, MSNBC, NBC, CNN, and Fox News have regularly invited on former defense officials turned industry consultants to explain the conflict between Israel and Palestine without ever mentioning to viewers that these analysts may represent clients with a financial stake in matters being discussed. Wouldn't you want to know, if you were being offered a solution to a problem, that the person that's offering you that solution has a vested interest in a particular outcome?
If you have 3 Pepsis and drink 1, how much more refreshed are you?
Pepsi?
Partial credit.
Doesn't it make you consider more broadly that America's role in the world is supplying weapons, often to both sides of a conflict, that you have people in Congress investing in weapons firms during this conflict? The legacy media have people that work for weapons firms talking to you during the conflict. Do you think that's helping us to get an unbiased assessment? As we try to tiptoe through this tragedy, lives are being lost continually, unnecessarily. Certainly it doesn't appear to be leading to a solution, one might argue. Don't you want to ensure that the information you're getting is the best possible information from the best possible people? How else are we ever going to achieve anything other than endless ongoing war? Endless ongoing war. I wonder if anyone would benefit from an endless ongoing war. I wonder if our intensity and willingness to take sides would benefit any of these interests that sell arms all around the world, often to both sides, turn up on your TV set, advocating for war without declaring those investments, have a Congress full of people that are supposed to be representing you while investing in those weapons companies, having accepted lobbying money from those weapons companies while they work within a party that accepts donations from those weapons companies. That seems to me like a 360 dome that's worth interrogating. In the days after Hamas's attack on Israel, MSNBC had for a moment quietly taken 3 of its Muslim broadcasters out of the anchor's chair since Hamas's attack on Israel, according to the online news outlet Semaphore. By contrast, the network has repeatedly brought on Bash, whom Biden last year appointed to an intelligence advisory board to contextualize the ongoing war to viewers. Here's some context. Wars are actually quite a good thing. What about these dead Israeli babies and these dead Palestinian babies? That's all bad, and you can decide which ones are worse for yourself. But what I will tell you is, look at my stocks and shares. Isn't that going to cheer you up? I'm trying to cheer up. I keep looking at the dead babies. Look at the stocks and shares. The dead babies is a haunting image. We shouldn't have showed you those dead babies. Is there any particular type of dead baby that would cheer you up while I focus on my stocks and shares? I suppose I've been programmed to appreciate these dead babies more. Well, Focus on that then, because I make money either way. Bash isn't the only defense industry consultant being invited on TV to explain the conflict between Israel and Palestine. I mean, one's already bad, isn't it? You want no one. This is so difficult, isn't it? It's so complicated. Can we just have no one who's making any money from this involved in the reporting? No, we're going to have several. The networks have also been calling on some of Bashir's colleagues at the Washington, D.C. based consultant firm Beacon Global Strategies, where he is a managing director and partner. On a personal note, I feel somewhat offended that the mainstream media feel entitled to conduct moral witch hunts when in their own reporting and investigating, this is how they actually behave. While Beacon does not disclose its clients, the firm has worked with Raytheon as well as the Israeli surveillance firm NSO Group, according to reports from the New York Times. We can't continue to bring you complex and hopefully enjoyable, let me know in the chat, content like this without our supporters. And what incredible supporters we have. We love you and we love them. We need all of you. Sat123.com made this thing. And thankfully with this little guy, we could all stay connected together, potentially forever, because cell phones go down for hundreds of reasons, don't they? Unreliable little things, nicking all our data. But satellite phones will always work because you're carrying your own personal cell tower with you everywhere you go. I mean, look how chunky this is. It's so satisfying. It's like a little gorgeous baby phone. You can prepare for the unexpected with your own personal cell tower everywhere you go. Anyone with a satellite phone has a way to communicate with friends, family, emergency services. There's no tracking, no one listening in on your call. Hello, is that Glenn Greenwald? Hello there. The most secure way to communicate is from a satellite phone to another satellite phone. The US military uses satellite phones for secured communication. Please visit sat123.com or call 866-643 0609, and this will help us. This really helps us. You want to know how to support our content? Use promo code BRAND50 to waive the $50 activation fee. Then you and hopefully one of your mates, look at that. Oh shit! Oh no, it can handle that. See, this is strong stuff. You and your mates can talk to each other together. Please visit sat123.com or call 8666430609. Use the promo code BRAND50 to waive the $50 activation fee. Sadly, this service is only applicable to those in the USA, but the satellites are in space. Why can't I have one in the UK? Amend it. This is a call. I'm going to call them that. Make this work in the UK. Use the code BRAND50. Okay, let's get back to this complex content. On October the 12th, Fox News interviewed Beacon managing director and partner Michael Allen, who served as a top National Security Council official under President George W. Bush. CNN also interviewed Beacon senior counselor Leon Panetta, who served as CIA director and Secretary of Defense under President Barack Obama. While we are all good as tribalized creatures with a deep, long history, perhaps longer than we ever imagined or history reports, have lived with natural alliances with groups that we feel affiliation because our survival and their survival are completely entwined. It's clear from that little list that whether you're Republican or Democrat, pro-Bush or pro-Obama, left or right, there's a little group of intersecting, crossing over folks making a lot of money and making a lot of noise, generally advocating for further conflict on either and both sides, porously moving between media, defense, government, corporatization, effortlessly and endlessly. Meanwhile, down here in the dirge, we all sort of wave flags and squabble with one another about particular advocacy. And as I've said many times, I understand that if you are personally affected by this, of course, I'm in no position to judge your alliances. I wouldn't dream of it. But surely we can agree that having a system where people profiteer and sit in different chairs, in different hats, advocating usually for more war and more expenditure isn't the best way to solve these heartbreaking global problems. Neither Fox nor CNN noted it was interviewing executives at Beacon and chose only to identify them by their former government titles. If your partner brought someone around there and said, oh, this is my sister's friend Derek, and didn't mention that they had a long-lasting love affair with Derek, I'd say, you mentioned that it was your sister's friend. What you didn't tell me is that you had a long relationship with them. Why was that? Is it because you maybe thought that would bias my impression of that person if you'd given us that one bit of information? Yeah, I thought I would keep that back. Let's not make this about that I would have with Derek, my sister's friend Derek. Telling you that someone's a government official and not mentioning that they've got strong ties to Raytheon and Lockheed Martin seems like a pretty deliberate choice to me, doesn't it? So let's follow that line. Right, they didn't tell us that. Why? Oh, because then we'd think that the information they was giving us was biased towards spending more money on like Raytheon products and Lockheed Martin products. What does that mean more generally? Oh, well, they benefit from war. Right, so in conflict situations, what type of attitude are they going to take? Probably like a pro-war stance. Right, so what should we make sure we include in our analysis of the situation? The potential that the war's not actually for the reason that they're saying it is probably for another reason, potentially for another reason. And finally, what the hell are we going to do about Derek? Forgive him? NBC's Israel news coverage has also relied on executives at WestExec Advisors, a defense industry consulting firm that was founded by former Obama administration officials, including Antony Blinken, who now serves as Biden's Secretary of State. Do you see a theme developing? Do you see what's happening here? Again, if you are connected to the loss of life in Gaza or the loss of life in Israel, you are in a tragic situation that I do not feel qualified to comment upon. But having people moving between administrations, moving between agencies, advocating for bombing, same as the free speech argument in a way, isn't it? Sometimes people go, do you know what we should do? Censor people that are saying something that I disagree with. And once in a while you think, yeah, I'd love people. Do you know what I'd like to see censored? People attacking me. I wish people would censor that. But actually, free speech is more important to me because it's a principle. It's a principle. The whole problem that we have in the world right now is no one's got any values. No one's got any principles, not when it comes to the top strata of governing the world. They will mouth the words of principles and values, but meanwhile, undisclosed connections to Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. Without transparency, without clarity, without a legacy media with values and principles, and let's face it, we don't have one, we're never going to navigate our way through this treacherous swamp. WestExec has advised the aerospace manufacturer Boeing, which provides GPS guidance bomb kits to Israel. According to American Prospect, WestExec has also represented the Israeli artificial intelligence company Windward, which provides surveillance on ships in real time. On October 15th, NBC's Meet the Press invited Ambassador Dennis Ross, a former special assistant to Obama and senior advisor at WestExec, to discuss why Israel has shifted its approach to Hamas and has been preparing to launch a ground invasion in Gaza. The news outlet did not know Ross's affiliation with WestExec. Let's make this for a moment about the legacy media. When they spend money and time investigating a particular phenomena or presenting a particular issue, do you follow the trajectory of where it's leading? Could that trajectory be attack dissenting voices, close down independent media? Because here, they've got an opportunity to do some investigating. I don't see them doing that. This is coming from independent media, the reporting that we're using here. On CNN, NBC, the BBC, the New York Times, essentially what we understand as the legacy media, they're not saying, wait a minute, it seems that some of these voices that we're platforming and showcasing have a vested interest in particular outcomes that could be, I don't want to be cynical now, connected to profit or dominion or a unipolar strategy that would advance globalist interests. They're not saying that, are they? Why is that? Well, you know the answer, of course, because they are part of that strata. They are not reporting on it, they are it. You cannot get objectivity from people that are vested in it. The reason they would never say, listen, sorry, before you tell us whether or not we should bomb someone or blow something up, just do you sell things that bomb people and blow people up? Well, why? Yes, actually I do. The reason they can't ask that question is because their affiliation with that is total. It's total enmeshment, total immersion. On October the 16th, former CIA director John Brennan, a principal at WestExec, appeared on MSNBC alongside Bash, the Beacon consultant. The interview was conducted by MSNBC host and former Biden White House press secretary Jen Psaki, who previously worked as a senior advisor at WestExec and also handled crisis communications for the Israeli facial recognition company AnyVision. Jen Psaki, remember the number of times you saw Jen Psaki come out and say, yeah, this is what we're doing, and no, we're not able to answer that question, and this is what we believe about the pandemic, and Pfizer are doing their best, and this is what we believe, and this is our best information. That person represents a set of interests. You've just heard those interests listed. Jen Psaki's on, I think, MSNBC now doing like Inside with Jen Psaki. You better believe it's inside. It couldn't be any deeper inside. We have to debug ourselves from this system. We have to just sort of pick it out like the bit in the Matrix where they pull that thing out the back of Neo's head. That thing now is MSNBC, CNN, BBC. Get that out of your mind so you can see straight that you're being told you're having an agenda amplified that is not beneficial to you, is not beneficial to anything or anyone except the system itself. MSNBC did not mention any of these potentially relevant details. I wonder why. Let's revisit the package we saw at the beginning of this report, now knowing what affiliations each of these individuals have, and note how they don't mention it, and note how the legacy media, who I understand love doing big investigations, don't ask any of those questions.
Jeremy, I thought this might be the most...
Jeremy, not just Jeremy, not your mate Jeremy from next door. That's Jeremy Bash with links to Raytheon.
significant foreign trip by a U.S. president in any recent moment. What's your thought on the importance of President Biden's trip?
It's absolutely incredible that the commander-in-chief would travel all the way to a war zone to an ally.
Okay, I suppose what he's focusing on is the bravery of Joe Biden traveling to an area where there is conflict. But what he's not saying is that he has ties to a consultancy firm that itself may be connected with Raytheon. That's the number one thing I want to know about that guy right now. I don't really care about anything else about him, do you? Like, this is about war.
I want to bring in Leon Panetta.
Look at Anderson Cooper. Oh, serious. I'm doing something serious from a serious place at a time of seriousness. And now the one thing I could say that will be of some use to you, I'm not going to say. This person has connections to the military-industrial complex.
Formerly the U.S. Secretary of Defense under President Obama. Secretary Panetta, appreciate you being with us.
See Anderson Cooper introducing this dude with all of this gravitas. It's Leon Panetta. He worked with Barack Obama. What a great time that was for America. What he doesn't say is this guy works for Beacon that have ties to Boeing that make weapons. So just hold that thought in your mind while he's talking and see if that's influencing anything he's saying.
I understand Israel's reaction to this. We had the same reaction after 9/11.
If we had our time again, and some say that we might, Nietzsche for one, would we do the exact same thing after 9/11? Was that broadly a success? Let me know in the chat.
We were going to go after the terrorists who were involved in 9/11, and we did. It took a while.
Took a while, and it took a lot of money, didn't it? It's interesting. There was a massive long war with Afghanistan, an expensive, disastrous war with Iraq, actions in Yemen and Syria ongoing, all an absolute disaster. Unless I suppose you looked at it from the perspective of, say, Boeing or Raytheon or Lockheed Martin, then that was a kind of golden age.
Welcome back. The panel is here. NBC News Chief Washington Correspondent and Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell, Ambassador Dennis Ross, former Special Envoy to the Middle East and an NBC News Foreign Affairs Analyst.
He's a special envoy. What's so special about him? Well, one thing that's special is he's not telling you that he's a senior advisor at WestExec. Is that relevant? I don't know. Let's see what he says and see if it's a bit WestExec-y.
The sheer absence of even a shred of humanity has shocked Israel and basically said, we now have ISIS living next door.
Conflating those events with ISIS. Let me say once more that the suffering of Israeli people and however they may emotionally and physically respond to that is beyond my comprehension. But what's within my comprehension is that dude works for WestExec and he just tied this issue to ISIS, which I don't think was in order to condemn the action severely, but to facilitate potential ongoing activity that will be profitable.
Former CIA Director John Brennan, you've worked in national security, you've worked in the field.
John Brennan, you've done a lot of things. Let me give you an exhaustive list of things that John Brennan's done. Well, he's done this great thing and that great thing. He's worked in a field, apparently. He's done a lot. That's it. Can't think of anything else. I'm a journalist, after all, on MSNBC. Nope, that's the end of my investigation. Oh, also, are you a principal at WestExec? Hey, come on, this is the news.
How did Israel's vaunted intelligence network and military and the U.S. not see this coming?
Well, it's a good question, Andrea, and I think there were a lot of failures that led up to this. Clearly, the Israelis didn't have the either human or technical sources that gave them insight into this.
Oh. Oh, no, it's an advert. It's an advert. Like, we're worried about, oh, my God, there's people on both sides suffering. This is terrible. How do we? You can see that perspective. You can see that perspective. Well, here's another perspective from WestExec. They should have spent more money on tech. Oh, okay. What would they say? What's their defense here? I mean, they've got incredible defense, let's face it. But what would their defense be? Well, of course, if you've worked in the military, of course you're going to work at WestExec, of course you're going to go on legacy media. But is this the best version? Is this it? Should we stop trying now? Do you want to stop trying? Or do you think we could go, hey, declare your interests. Stop presenting this as neutral information. Because how are we in this incredible, complex time that seems unmanageable, so complex and tangled that you can't even talk about it without risk of hurting somebody? How is it going to be resolved by having people that profit directly from from a perpetuation of the situation being the only voices that you hear. Because this is such a contentious subject to even discuss, let's use an example from recent memory. During the pandemic, do you remember how many times legacy media broadcasters got Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, onto the TV and said, like, so how great is the vaccine? It's fantastic. Yes, it's 98% effective. But okay, that's brilliant. And we're so glad that this effective vaccine's been brought in. Hope that the one you trialed is the one we're getting, by the way. But can you just tell us once more how you're not making any profit from this, like you said at the beginning? Oh, actually, we're going to make record profits. Okay, I'm just going to put that on my notes as a journalist, along with some of the other information, just in case it comes relevant later. Many of the retired military leaders employed by the networks as paid contributors have secondary affiliations that are rarely, if ever, mentioned, leaving viewers in the dark about whose interests they're promoting. You can say that again, but I won't, because, well, we believe in not wasting your time, unlike the legacy media. None of the leading networks, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, and MSNBC, makes a regular practice of announcing its military analysts' financial ties to the Pentagon, connections that could colour their on-air comments. Not only colour it, absolutely define it. Former military officials played a key role in promoting the Bush administration's policies before and after the US invasion of Iraq in 2003. So this is just common practice. This is how these matters are handled. As documented by the New York Times in 2008, the Pentagon orchestrated the commentary of 75 former officers who served as radio and TV analysts, turning them into message force multipliers for the administration's point of view. The role of the media is to amplify and propagate the interests of the establishment. Here you see that in real time. Many of the retired officers who appeared on TV worked for companies that counted on military contracts, creating a built-in conflict that news organisations didn't mention when introducing the analysts. Of course not. They couldn't even investigate what's happening in front of their face. They can't even go, what's that? What is that? They just accept what it is. The larger issue is whether viewers or readers are adequately informed about where pundits are coming from on matters of life and death, said Mandy Smithberger, director of the Centre for Defence Information at the Project on Government Oversight. Oh, we ain't got time to investigate matters of life and death. We're too busy promoting Pfizer and war. I mean, the perfect situation for the legacy media would be one side throwing vaccines and the other one throwing bombs. Who would win? Probably the bomb side, particularly if the vaccine side start taking that stuff. When there is so much public concern about these wars, including among veterans, it becomes that much more important for people to know what the financial connections are, she said. News organisations should absolutely disclose this. It could change the conversation around war. If people were aware of who was profiting from it. That's why it's not happening. I don't know, does it change your perspective, regardless if you are affiliated with a particular side in this terrible, terrible conflict? Does knowing that people have an agenda beyond their declared, oh, we're doing what's right for America, our allies, or whatever the hell it is they're saying, does it help you have a better perspective? It helps me, I'll tell you that, in some ways. In other ways, it makes me so terrified about the nature of reality. I want to go and live on an island in space. Appearing on Fox News the week of Joe Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan was retired four-star General Jack Keane. What neither Keane nor the host mentioned is that he is more than merely a patriotic interest in the continued occupation. Keane, a former board member at weapons maker General Dynamics, is chair of AM General, the company that makes Humvees. He also sits on the boards of Sialum Technologies Incorporated, which manufactures military chemical lights and other technology deployed on the battlefield in Afghanistan, and the Institute for the Study of War, a think tank that publishes defence policy proposals with the aim of developing the next generation of national security leaders. That think tank is only thinking thoughts that lead to profit. What are you thinking now in the old tank? I'm thinking we should spend some more money on this tank and have them everywhere all over the world, all the time, like in Afghanistan, in unwinnable perpetuated wars. That is good. That is good. Hey, I like you. Come on inside the tank. And it's backed by CACI International Inc., General Dynamics, and other defense contractors. So it's not just an independent think tank thinking whatever thoughts are better for the world. It's thinking thoughts that lead to profit for General Dynamics and CACI. That's how it works. Keane was just one of a parade of ex-military and ex-public officials who appeared on cable news that week. Jim Narakis, an editor at Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, or FAIR, a progressive media watchdog, said such conflicts of interest put a premium on potential atrocities over existing ones. The imaginary future bloodshed of the Taliban has so much more emotional weight in the coverage than the actual people who have been killed by the US in the last 20 years, he said. There's a symbiotic relationship between media outlets who need sources, the weapons industry that needs favourable news coverage, and the former military officials who need jobs, and it all works together. It all works together incredibly well. So well, in fact, fact that we, the people, have an obligation to look at this information with a degree of objectivity. Again, I'm not talking to those of you that are emotionally affected by this terrible conflict. To expect objectivity of you at a time like this would be absurd. For the rest of us, though, that are taking sides due to various social, cultural, online pressures, perhaps we could incorporate into our understanding and potential biases that there are some serious biased voices out there being presented to you as news by legacy news media that elsewhere likes to present themselves as real investigators, getting to the truth, getting to the bottom of all these mysteries, like it's Scooby-Doo and the guys in the back of a van, when in fact what they are doing is amplifying the messaging of people that profit from conflict without due regard or the necessary respect for those of you and those of us that are being directly affected by this war, that are losing their lives as a result of the omni-wars all over the world, that are showing no sign of ending. Why could that be? Well, let me put this to you, beloved awakened wonders. Is it possible that for them, forever wars are not a crisis at all, but a business, a very successful business, and all the better if it generates crisis, conflict, argument, confusion, bafflement, and despair among the population who are forced to find a way to pick sides, to post the correct post, who can't think straight, even if they're not actually directly affected religiously, ideologically, or nationally by the conflict, having to show alliance and allegiance. Meanwhile, the true power continues undeclared, unaffected, able to profit, not ask the relevant questions by a legacy media who claim authority when in my view they should have none. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the chat? If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Remember, we stream every day with fantastic guests at these times. Download the Rumble app if you can, because you'll get notifications when we make content, and join us on Locals, where all of our additional content is available to you true, deep, awakened wonders. More important than any of that is, if you can, please stay free.